Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino DeGregory, engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino DeGregory.
Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Gino DeGregory. Today's episode, we will explore how kindness, self-awareness, and leadership shape meaningful workplaces and drive lasting impact. Our guest, Susan Inouye, is a transformational executive coach with over 20 years of experience working with 600 plus companies across 40 industries, from small businesses to Fortune 500 organizations. She's also the author of Leadership's Perfect Storm, where she explores the gift-centered approach, a leadership method inspired by inner city youth mentorship that fosters cultural transformation and business success. Why this conversation matters. The reason I invited Susan is because leadership is evolving, and today's employees expect more than just a paycheck. They seek meaning, engagement, and growth. Susan's experience offers practical strategies for leaders looking to connect across generations and build workplaces where both people and businesses thrive. Susan, welcome. Your leadership philosophy is truly unique. Can you start by sharing a bit about your journey, yourself, and your background?
Yeah, sure. As far back as I can remember, I've always wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And I remember volunteering at the mission. I remember feeding the homeless on Thanksgiving Day. And those things really touched my heart. And they gave me a lot of meaning and purpose in my life that I look for other ways to make a difference. And oddly enough, this is when I discovered films, the transformational power of films to just change lives. And I ended up in the film capital of the world, Los Angeles. And I was on scholarship to the University of Southern California. I got a BA in mathematics, graduated with honors in mathematics and a minor in music. I did something more practical to please my Japanese parents. But what happened is that several years later, I heard about a competition at the American Film Institute. It was called the Directing Workshop for Women. And they picked just a small select group of women to get a $5,000 grant to do a 30-minute short. And I thought to myself, Gino, here is my chance.
Right.
And so I was about to apply. I met someone who was close to the selection committee and basically told me that they were looking for people who would give them notoriety. And because I wasn't anybody famous, I could apply, but don't expect to get anything.
Right.
But you tell me that I can, and I'll prove you wrong.
That's right.
So I applied, and lo and behold, I got the $5,000 grant. But even back then, $5,000 wasn't a lot of money. So my passion, though, for helping to change lives through films was so strong. And I wanted to tell the story of my grandfather, who was interned in the concentration camps of America during World War II. And I raised over $500,000 in donated services and goods. I raised thousands of dollars and got some of the top people in Hollywood to work with me. And the film was solo. It premiered at festivals. It won awards. I ended up in the office of Kathleen Kennedy, who was then the assistant to Steven Spielberg. And I thought to myself, my life is going to change forever. And it did, but not in the way I thought. What happened was I could not get hired as a first-time director.
Oh, wow.
And finally, this guy that knew me, he pulled me aside, a TV producer, and he said, Susan, I hate to tell you this, but it's much easier to hire a first-time male director than a woman director. And of course, I was pretty crushed. I was angry. Mm-hmm. But I remembered what my dad told me years ago, that when he was first starting out his career, he wanted to be a doctor. And they told him, Stan, forget it. They won't come to you because you're Japanese. Mm-hmm. And he knew that no meant that people didn't KNOW what he was capable of. And he found a way around. He became a doctor of dentistry and a really successful one. So I had to find a way around. And as I reflected on, helping to transform lives, I realized I needed to transform my own. And so this is when I got into my growth mindset. I studied fiercely and deeply with teachers from the world of doing to the world of being. And one day what happened was is a business colleague of mine, she came up to me and she said, Susan, I want some of that. And I went, what do you want? She said, I've seen the positive transformation in you. I want you to coach me. I'm starting my own business. Now you have to remember that back then coaching wasn't popular at all.
Right.
And I was working in sales for a national company, but she was really persistent. And I said, okay. So I did this on the side. But as I became a better leader and a better person, and I coached her to do the same, two things happened. I became the number one salesperson in the company, and she made her first million in her first year.
Wow.
And this is why I say coaching is my calling. I did not seek to be a coach. It found me. And I've been just very fortunate because for almost 20 years, I've worked with over 600 companies in 40 industries. And the last 13 years, I've been focused on helping leaders better engage their younger generation, especially millennials, through this process that I learned method, Sawubona, which really is focused on helping people become the best leaders possible and then helping their people do the same. And the results have been for my clients like an increase of 50% in their profits in only 6 months. Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, first of all, congratulations in your success. And, as a person that also believes in, have that growth mindset, I can connect to what you said. Like somebody tells you no, that you can't do something, you're going to push and then going to continue. And then also allowing for things to happen, like somebody coming to you and say, hey, can you coach me? You're like, well, what am I doing? Like, I don't, but you were open to that, right? Like be open to that possibilities because, and then that turned into something amazing. And now you're impacting many lives. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
So one of the first questions after I have folks introduce themselves is, what does being a kind leader mean to you?
Yeah. When I think of being a kind leader, I think of a leader that encompasses various leadership styles. They are a servant leader. They're an authentic leader. They are a heartfelt leader, and they are a Sawubona leader. And as you may know, that each of these leadership styles, they really emerge to fulfill a gap in leadership that needed to be filled because of what was changing in the workplace and the world. And today, for the first time, we have 4 generations in the workplace. We have boomers, we have Gen X, we have millennials, and Gen Zs. And the leadership style that is emerging that the younger people tend to gravitate towards is Sawubona leadership. And the reason is that it actually was born out of the millennial generation. It's in over 30 countries today. And it most aligns with their values and their needs. And so it is their definition of what it is to be kind. Sawubona is a Zulu greeting. It means I see you, as in seeing the whole person. I see your gifts, your blind spots, your strengths, your weaknesses, your genius, and I accept all of you. What happens is when we see and accept people for who they are, they accept and see us for who we are, and then a different conversation unfolds, not one where we're lecturing to each other, but one where we're listening and learning from each other. And this is what the younger generation wants. They want to be listened to for their ideas. They want to be valued. They want to be seen and accepted for who they are. I actually think that every generation wants this as well. And so Sawubona is what it looks like for them to be a kind leader. And also, part of Sawubona and being kind leader is having what we call a soft front and a hard back. And think about this. It is the hard back of a core inner strength to be able to stand for what you believe, but at the same time having the soft front of compassion, of kindness, of openness and curiosity. Gino, it takes a lot of strength to be able to bring a soft front to a difficult situation and still remain firm and resolute.
Mm-hmm.
And many people, they feel that to deal with tough situations, you need to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
And that means disconnecting from our feelings,
Right.
because it is too hard to be tough when you feel too much.
Right.
And in some ways, they're right.
Mm-hmm.
But in other ways, that's why it takes a lot of strength to bring a soft front and calmness and not act out in, with a tough reaction.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Because, go ahead.
I agree. Well, as you were explaining that, I went back to when I was little, actually. And, my parents were, my dad disciplined, right? And, I kept thinking, like, if I do something and I did something, it's like, tough it up, don't cry. You hide those feelings, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, and when you were talking about the soft and the back, you can still be firm with the things that you want, but you could also be soft. And what I experienced when I was little, my dad is great in what he does, but I come from South America, so the Latino and kind of background is like the male kind of dominant type of thing, right? And you have to be tough. You have to be, but the reality, you don't have to be tough to work and grow. And going back to the Sawubona and the kind leadership, it really allows you to have that soft spot to care, right? And also the hard shell to those your core values and what you really want to kind of implement with your organization or your group or whatever, right? So it really resonates with me.
And I think it's not about, I think when we think about hard, we think about stiffness.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's about, when I say core inner strength, there's a life to our core inner strength, but it makes us very strong. It gives us strength. Mm-hmm. The challenge is, I don't think that a lot of people that do the command and control style of leadership understand that when we disconnect from our emotions, we disconnect from ourselves and who we are. And then we disconnect from our people and who they are.
Right.
And we can still be able to address difficult situations, not out of a fear of being too soft, but about an awareness of who we are and an awareness of the situation and people involved.
Right, right. And I struggle, sharing to the audience here, growing up, I've always been kind of a nice person, right? But also was driven and kind of knew where I wanted to go. But everybody wants to be liked, right? And as a leader, where people, I feel like leaders fail, they try to please everybody, right? Because you want that niceness right in there. But there's a difference, because I love what you're saying is, if you are caring, as well as you see that person on who they are and as they are, right? It opens up that connection that allows you to be more open, allows you to be more, but at the same time, there's accountability behind it. That's the hard shell, right? Accountability to make sure that people are doing what's needed at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I define accountability different. Mm-hmm. A manager holds people accountable, but a leader creates the culture and environment where the people hold themselves accountable. And that's the difference between a manager and a leader. It's a very important distinction. Yeah.
Actually, say that one more time, because I really want, that resonates.
Sure.
Yeah.
So a manager holds their people accountable.
Right.
But a leader creates the culture, the environment where the people hold themselves accountable.
So
and that's the difference between, that's one of the differences between managing and leading.
Right. I like that. I never heard it from that perspective. It's not so much you, the leader, holding them accountable, but it's them holding themselves accountable for the things that they've committed to.
And when we create a culture where people are motivated and inspired by what we do, mm-hmm. they protect the culture. They hold themselves accountable. They want the best because we see the best in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's again, it's tough and in some uncertain environments, right? We talked about it in a pre-recording. We do a lot of government work in the military, and I love your story about you coming in and you got them in attention, and because they weren't taking you. So do you mind expanding on that story? I love that story.
Yeah, well, I was requested. I was requested to work with a high-tech and product solution company. They create software and stuff for the government. All their clients are government agency because the CEO of the company happens to be a former military person. Mm. And he brought into his company all these military people. And he had asked me to come down and to do a training for his senior managers because they were having a lot of people challenges, a lot of silos and things like that. And when I went down there, we did a training. We were at a conference table and stuff like that. And most of them had their arms crossed. They had their arms crossed, like, why am I here? What are we doing? Like, what are you going to teach me that I don't already know? Right. And so I knew I had to break their pattern. I mean, it wasn't this conscious because I just kind of do this. I saw, I observed what was going on. I said, oh, I got to break their pattern. And I knew they were all from the military. So I started playing music and I asked them to get up and dance, to clap their hands. And they looked at me and went, this is so weird. What is this doing? And so because I was trying to break their pattern. Anyway, and so I just said, in the midst of the music, as arms were crossed, I said, attention. And all of a sudden, all of their bodies just went into that attention mode. I said, stand up. They stood up. I said, clap your hands. They started clapping. And before they knew it, they looked at me and they said, oh my gosh, that was so good. How did you do that? I said, this is because you guys are so programmed. You're so programmed in patterns that need to be broken, because this is why you're having so many people problem. You're so focused on the technology, which is a good thing. It's made the company successful. But the other side to being very tech-oriented is to be people-oriented. And that's what you're blind to, and we need to learn. Part of Sawubona is looking at the gifts and the other side. And they had such respect for me because I had broken that pattern. One guy who was really staunchly against me said, Susan, you're good. Okay, I'm open.
There you go.
Yeah, it was kind of funny.
I love that story because, it's shifting that pattern. Like a lot of people get caught up and then, you coming in with music and trying to like, what is this? This is not what we do. This is a business environment, right? We don't talk about that soft stuff or but it's different, right? The world is changing, right? The things that we need are changing for the different generations or even, for future generations. So pulling a thread on that, you mentioned millennials and Gen Z. We have 4 different types of generations right now in the workforce. But how do we better engage millennials and Gen Z as it relates to, Sawubona and leading? Because I feel like there's a shift on how older generations thought of leadership, right? They thought, you have to be strong and when I picture somebody CEO, you have like, he's not approachable and you just got to drive and he has all the answers or she has all the answers, right? But that's shifted, right? And we've seen different types of leaders and that kind of stuff. But how would you recommend, or what are you seeing in companies especially when it comes to millennials and Gen Z?
When I go out and work with clients and I talk to younger people, what I hear they have many needs, but there are 3 needs that just keep echoing, which is they want to feel heard, they want to use their gifts, and they want to have meaning and purpose in their lives. So in order for them to feel heard, we have to be able to connect and receive with them. In order for them to use their gifts, we have to see their gifts. In order for them to have meaning and purpose in their lives, we have to build a culture where they feel a part of something greater than themselves. And in the aspect of Sawubona, we do that through what we call the leaderships. And there are 5 of them. And this is truly where leaders have to shift to be leaders in the 21st century. So can I share with them the 5?
Please. Yeah, please do.
So we have to shift from control, that's the command and control, to connect and receive. We have to shift from conformity to see and accept. We have to shift from expectations to intentions. We have to shift from authority to authenticity. We have to shift from bottom line myopia to belonging. So if I go over like each of them, from please. Control to connect and receive. Connection is not communication or connectivity. It's how a person feels when they are with us. And when a person is able to connect with someone else, they are able to be more present and mindful to be able to receive what it is that they're offering. And receptivity, Gino, is a very overlooked quality that's needed in leadership. We are taught that it's better to give than receive,
Right.
but it's not necessarily. It's important to be able to build, and building the body of a leader, to build receiving.
Mm-hmm.
So you can receive a person's ideas with openness and curiosity. You can receive their thoughts. You can receive their help. You can receive their praise. You can receive their criticism. All these things are important in being a good leader. And you can't do that when you're trying to control the situation. Like, I'll give you just a short story of one of my clients. I'll call him Adam. He was the CFO of, he is actually the CFO of an international firm. And one day he called me at the beginning of our journey, and he said, Susan, I now understand what you're saying. I tend to control my people by giving them the answers. When they come to me to solve a problem, I give them the answers. Mm-hmm. When they come to me to ask questions, I give them the answers. And it's my way of controlling them to do it exactly the way I would do it. And I'm finding that they keep coming back, and I have no time to be a leader.
Right.
And he said to me, but my younger people, they hate it. They say, you never listen. You never let us share our ideas. You're always telling us what to do. And so that's a perfect example of control. So we had to do, there were many things we did to get him to be able to connect within himself so he could connect with others.
Yeah.
And went from one thing to the other.
Before we go to the next four, I like this flow that we're in, from a control to connect and receive. I like that. One of the things that I tell my leaders in the organization, empower. You have to empower your folks. And you can't just empower and say, hey, go take that hill or go do that, right? You have to empower, but you also set the right expectation and receive the ideas, right? Whatever ideas they may have, when they come to you, they need to come with the problem and a solution. Because if they just come into a problem and you're out there trying to solve it, that defeats the purpose of being a leader and empowering and growing future leaders, right? So I like that. I'm going to start using that from control to connect and receive.
Yeah, the major complaint that I get from millennials and Gen Zs is that my boss pretends to listen, and I can tell their mind is elsewhere. And that's the biggest complaint. They go, yeah, you're listening. You're not saying anything, but your mind is elsewhere. And I've had a lot of bosses say to me, oh my gosh, that they would tell me this. And I go, yep. I said, they're very direct in that,
Yeah.
So anyway, then the next one is from conformity to see and accept. You have to understand that the younger generation, for them, one size does not fit all. Mm-hmm. They do not want to be seen as part of a mass herd. They want to be seen as unique individuals that contribute something to the organization. And so when we go from conformity to see and accept, what we're doing is we're observing. Mm-hmm. We're seeing their gifts. Mm-hmm. We're allowing them to use their gifts. We're putting them in areas where they can blossom because we know their gifts. Mm-hmm. God, I want to share this story with you because it's so powerful. Can I? Because
we have time.
Explain to you how Sawubona is so powerful. So I was working with a company, an IT company, and the director of IT, I'll call her Kathy. I wasn't working with her. I was working with the other executives. She was a director. And she came to me one day and she said, Susan, I'm so upset. I'm going to have to fire Jack by the end of the week. And Jack was a millennial.
Yeah.
And she said, I see he has a lot of talent, but he's not making his monthly quota of new customers served. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what to do. So Kathy, Gino, was using command and control, the carrot and the stick. Mm-hmm. She gave him incentives. She gave him reprimands, and nothing was working. And so as we began to talk, I talked to her about what gifts are and stuff. And I asked her, what do you think are Jack's gifts? And she really didn't know. And this is not unusual because gifts are what we are born to bring into the world. It's what we naturally do. It's just who we are.
Yeah.
So people take for granted the things that are there.
Yeah.
But then I asked her, why did you hire him? And her eyes lit up and she said, oh my gosh, because he's not like any other tech guy. He is good at gaining rapport with our customers. They ask for him by name. He doesn't talk down to them in techie language.
Yeah.
He helps them to understand in a way that they get it. He can solve any problem. And so the other reps come to him. And so she said, but I'm going to have to fire him. I said, wait a minute. Okay. So I said, let's step back, see a bigger picture of this.
Yeah.
And I asked her, what do you think is Jack's retention rate on the clients that he does have compared to the other reps? And she said, I don't know. And so I said, can you find out? She did. I said, because he may be serving less new clients, but keeping more, and he may be more profitable.
Yeah.
And so she went and she found out and she came back. She said, you never believe this. He has the highest retention rate of all the reps, and he is more profitable.
Yeah.
And so I said to her, this will buy us time and let you and I brainstorm. So she talked to her boss, it bought her time, and we brainstormed. And I said to her, now tell me his gifts again. She said, wow, he gains rapport with people. He's generous. He's great with training other people because he was training as other people, right? He's detail-oriented. He is analytical. He can solve problems. I said, oh my gosh. So these are the gifts that are coming out in his bad behavior. How can we redirect it so that he can use his energy in a different way? And she came up with a great idea. She said, what if we had him create a training manual that gave away all of his secrets? I said, great. And I said, then what if you have him train everyone?
Right.
Because he is really good at coaching and training people. And she said, oh my gosh. She went to Jack. She told him how she saw his gifts and what he would do. And he said he'd be happy to. And long story short, we did many things, but long story short, the company got a training manual. He trained the entire team.
Yeah.
Productivity and retention went up across the board.
Beautiful.
He discovered in breaking down what he did so well, Gino, he discovered where he could be more effective and efficient. Yeah. And he now was making his monthly quotas of new customers served.
It's amazing. Yeah.
They had 3 consecutive years of record-breaking customer retention. And Kathy was promoted from a director to general manager.
Wow. What a story.
So this is what happens when we use kind leadership.
Yep.
This is what happens. The result is increased revenues and profitability.
Because she was ready to pull the trigger, right? I mean, he was being measured incorrectly into the things that were not his gifts, essentially, right? And what he contributed and the impact that he was making, because they weren't even measuring that impact that he was making. They were just looking at it from other angles. So it's amazing to take a step back and prior to making some of those big decisions, right? Like, what else can we use this individual? Or the better question is, what are this individual's gifts?
Yeah. So the thing about it is when we see bad behavior, what we consider to be bad behavior, there are 2 questions that a leader should ask. What are the gifts that is trying to come out in this bad behavior?
Yeah.
And how do I redirect the gift so it better serves this person and the organization?
Yeah.
And when we ask those questions, it takes our mind in a different direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. So moving on to the third one, right?
From expectations to intentions. Expectations are our rules of how things should be done. And they create a lot of pain when people do not meet our expectations. And so I say to my leaders, you need to turn your expectations into intentions. So for example, I can say to you, Gino, I expect that if I give you training, you'll be able to do your job. And when you make a mistake, I have a lot of pain. But instead, if I turn it to an intention, because intention is something that is within us, it's something we can control.
Yes.
And so if I say, Gino, my intention is to help you be the best you can be by giving you training.
Yeah.
When you mess up, my intention is to help you be the best. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about where the mistake was. How can we do it different and better?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm empowering you to be your best.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge difference. I mean, just the energy, right? Energy is like, I'm expecting you. It's like even like you on your own, buddy. Right? You make sure you're doing X, Y, and Z. But my intention, now you're bringing in that energy collectively, right?
It's on you. It's
right.
not on them, because we can't control people,
right?
As much as we try to.
Yeah.
And this is the aspect of we have to learn to be able to let go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an example. I have one of my leaders kind of runs the sales side, and we just hired kind of somebody under him, and the expectations are X, Y, and Z, and we're feeling like maybe they're not quite there. And then I asked him a question. I was like, "Well, have we set the clear vision? Have we provided training? Have we done all those different things?" And he was like, "Yeah, no, you're right. We haven't done all those things, so we can't really judge anything just yet." Until all those things. So my intention is for you to have a right structure to support your team moving forward. And, it was a different conversation compared to kind of negative rabbit hole as it relates to what this employee is.
So I say to my leaders, because most leaders go, "Okay, Susan, it's very hard for me to not say expectations." I said, instead of having expectations, set goals with your people. Because then if you're setting it with your people, they're agreeing to it and you're agreeing to it.
Yeah.
Now, a goal is different than I expect you, because our expectations are based on what we've experienced and how we've done things. And they may have a different take on it.
Absolutely.
As many of our young people do,
So what's four?
Yeah, the fourth one is from authority to authenticity. Okay. Young people, they don't respect you just because you have a title.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What they do respect, and partly is this: millennials are the first generation that did not have to go through authority to get information. Mm-hmm. And information used to be used by leaders as leverage over their people. But today, the younger generation can get information like this, right? Mm-hmm. So they don't respect you just because you have a title. What they do respect is authentic information, wisdom, experience, as long as you don't lecture down to them.
Yeah.
That's why they talk to their boss the same way they talk to a friend, mm-hmm. because they feel that's authentic and they can do it in a respectful way.
Yeah. And people feel that too, right? Like, and you truly are authentic. I'm really here going back to connecting, right? You connect with your employees or your colleagues, right? There's a difference because now you're being genuine, you're being authentic. You really are there to help the bigger cause or the mission or the project or whatever that may be, right? And you're right. I didn't actually think about that. So before, people kept the information as like knowledge was power, I guess, right? And if people didn't have that, there was one way to get that information. But now you're right. A lot of people can get information. You got AI, generative AI. I can get any information, right? Anything. So,
our young people know things faster than we do.
Absolutely.
I mean, they just do. And I guess the last one is from bottom line myopia to belonging. Our young people, they want to feel a part of something greater than themselves. They want to contribute their gifts mm-hmm. to the success of an organization. And they want to help us get the results that we need, but they want to be able to use their gifts and they want to do it in their way. And also when I say they want to do it in their way, they're open to coaching and to mentoring as long as we are open and curious to what they have to offer. And they're willing to brainstorm with us. They're willing to do so many other things, but the problem is that we get stuck in our right, wrong judgments mm-hmm. of nope, can't be done that way. Nope, it's got to be done this way. Look, I've been around for years. I've done this, and they just hate hearing that. I mean, I think we hated hearing that when our generations prior to us would say that to us, right?
Right.
It just turns us off. It just goes, you don't get me.
Right. Yeah, this is how we've always done it, and we're going to do it, right? And they're like, oh, well, there's different ways. Times change, information change, situation change, right? So it's adapting.
And I have to say that companies today, I'm finding more and more companies, unfortunately, are focused on the bottom line. They'll have annual conferences where they'll say, we're going to be $1 billion company. Let's get behind it. Let's do this. We're going to be and they think that is motivating people. Because the people in the audience are asking, like, well, how much of that $1 billion am I going to get?
Right.
I'm helping you get this, but then how much am I getting?
Right.
As you tell me to cut my budget, as you tell me to cut my people and all these things, you want us to be $1 billion company.
Yeah.
And it's really got to change because it just doesn't land. I know it doesn't land for the younger generation. I don't think it lands for other generations as well.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And it's connecting on the right things, right? Like, for me, just as an example, kind leaders, right? Attracting and creating kind leaders worldwide is my vision, right? So not only attracting employees, but also the partners and customers that are vibrating in the same level and wanting to contribute and build, right? Which has a different tone than, I want to create, like I said, $1 billion organization and all that stuff. It doesn't resonate well because it's not authentic or genuine. It's just a number. A number is a number, or a driver that is only resonate with certain people. If you know what I mean.
I think that people, business owners, executives in positions today, they forget that the people are the ones that create the profit.
Absolutely.
And that the more that you focus on the growth and the development of your people, the byproduct will be increased productivity, revenues, and profitability. And I can prove that in so many other stories that I could tell you about my clients and how they have increased. They didn't even know it was connected. You mean me being a better leader in person ended up with us like increasing our revenues by 50% in 6 months. I had one client that did it.
That's crazy.
So yeah.
Yeah, it is impactful, right? You're making an impact, and the impact ripples across the organization and sets the tone and puts the right energy into your organization that people are going to be not only excited to come to work, but they want to work harder because there is a bigger driver, bigger purpose for them at the end of the day, and they know they're being taken care of.
Oh, yeah. And then there's loyalty.
Yeah.
I mean, more younger people are leaving corporations because the culture sucks. Yeah. I mean, I had one exec call me and said, Susan, I had this really wonderfully talented millennial woman. I mean, he didn't say millennial, but I knew she was a millennial. Come to me with a resignation letter saying that my culture sucked. And this is why she was leaving. And he later found out when he asked her, well, you probably have another job to go to, right? She goes, no.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is like, he goes, who would quit their job without another one to go to? A millennial.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you. Those are great 5 areas to kind of expand and allows us to really better lead, right? To your point, successfully, especially for millennials and Gen Zs. But as we're starting to wrap up here, what is the vision for the future of leadership? What are you seeing with the changes and all that stuff? What's your...
the one thing that I'm seeing is the boomer generation is having a very hard time of letting go of the more command and control style of leadership. And, they like, because it's quicker and faster to give you an order and you do it without questions.
Yeah.
And the patience to be able to coach and train people is something that they're not used to. I do see that, number one, times are changing, that the touchy-feely stuff that was mocked as unimportant is becoming critical, because this year, millennials will be the largest generation in the global workforce.
Wow.
And they want compassionate leaders. They want leaders who see their gifts, that empower them to live meaningful and purposeful lives. And now we have the backup of science. Science is proven that compassion is essential to our evolutionary history. And while men can employ it, women are more attuned to compassion.
Yeah.
And so this marks an evolution really in leadership, a new normal to a more connected and emotionally intelligent leadership. And in the end, this is where women have the edge.
Right.
And we have to get more women into leadership roles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that. I agree 100%. So in the next section, I'm just going to go some rapid fire questions here for you to, and then we'll close it up here. So what's one book every leader should read?
My book, Leadership's Perfect Storm. No, seriously, it's a really good book, and it's got practices at the end of it, and it's filled with stories. And Beautiful. It hit the #1 bestseller in leadership and business management when it launched the end of 2018.
Perfect. And we'll put it on the show notes here for people to kind of get to it. What's your go-to leadership mantra?
I think see the gifts in others.
I like it. Beautiful. One small action leaders can take today to create a more engaging workplace.
They can start to praise the gifts of their people. If they do that, the byproduct will be tenfold.
Beautiful. If you could have coffee with anyone alive or from the past, who would it be and why?
It would be the Dalai Lama. Because the Dalai Lama to me embodies what it is to be a Sawubona, a kind leader. And he literally lives 3 qualities that are essential in leadership today. And that's the quality of acceptance, surrender, and forgiveness.
I love it. Acceptance, surrender, and
forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you.
I could go more into that. It's a really big thing for me for helping my leaders. But anyway,
I like that. Maybe on the next one.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
So they can get in touch with me at Susan. I'll say it first and then I'll spell it. SusanInouye.com/kind leader. So it's SusanInouye.com/kind leader. And if they go to that page, they'll see that I have 3 offers. One offer is they can download a free chapter of the book.
Okay.
The second is they can actually get the book. It'll direct them to Amazon, and all proceeds are donated to the nonprofit organization Youth Mentoring Connection. Their leader, Tony LeRae, is where he developed Sawubona leadership.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. And the third is they can book a discovery call with me. Ask me any questions if they're interested in learning more about my services or about Sawubona leadership. I'm happy to talk with them. So Perfect. That's SusanInouye.com/kind leader.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Awesome. So any final message you'd like to leave with our audience today?
I guess my final message would be that I would challenge companies to make growth and development a core value in their organization. Because when people grow and develop into the best that they can be, the byproduct is increased productivity, revenues, and profitability. And that means putting financial budgets aside that require people every year to take something new so that they can grow and change and be more. It will not only help with the profitability of the company, but with people being more comfortable with change. And that's important today when everything is changing so quickly.
Absolutely. Beautiful message. Thank you very much. Susan, this conversation has been incredible, insightful today, and I really enjoy all the stories and all the different insights and wisdom that you provided. So thank you for being part of our guest list here. And our audience, thank you all for listening and always being here. And I appreciate the support. So if you have any other feedback, feel free to reach out to me. But with that, I'll leave you with be kind, bring value, rise together. Have an amazing day, everybody.